On this episode, we swim with the Mariner in Waterworld Children of the Leviathan. So get ready to hold your breath and dive for some waterlogged M16s because you're listening to A Kind of Garbage, the Anthology podcast.
Hey, it's a kind of...
Greetings, land lovers, and welcome to the Anthology. This week, we're talking about the comic Waterworld Children of Leviathan. I'm Adam Bishop, and with me today are...
Cody Andrews, and we have a special guest with us today. We have...
Jack Packard! That's me!
Yeah! Jack, you have been dying to talk about Waterworld, and what a better place to do it than, I guess, with us.
Like, I've always loved the Waterworld movie. I mean, like, it's not great, but it is fantastical, and it's the kind of movie that really doesn't get made anymore. And just a little bit of a backstory is a couple years ago, the family and I went over to Universal Studios, which is still running the Waterworld stunt show.
Which is amazing because I got to go to Universal Studios, but the Florida version, which does not have the stunt show, but apparently the actual boat is docked there somewhere, but I never found it.
Yeah, right. And the California one has the stunt show, and apparently it is so popular that the popularity of the stunt show has outlasted the popularity of the movie. You know, the kids loved it. They have never seen Waterworld. They didn't know why my wife and I were so excited to watch the Waterworld stunt show. And then later for my birthday, my wife, who is wonderful and amazing, got me the 4-part series, Waterworld Children of the Leviathan. And, you know, it's an amazing comic.
Oh, just about the stunt show. I think it's so interesting that these live theatrical shows used to be like kind of popular. Like you used to be able to go see those like Wild West shootouts.
Yes.
And then I don't know if you've ever seen it's a great video, but you know, the Macy's Thanksgiving parade, there was a float that was like a live action Marvel superhero event, and it's amazing. If you just type in Macy's Marvel float, so as the where is that, in Chicago or New York?
New York.
Yeah, when the float goes down whatever street in New York, as like the people commentating on the parade announce it, all of a sudden, like Captain America kicks a door open and runs out and starts running around. And he's fighting and they're in like the cheapest costumes.
Oh, yeah.
But the best part about it is, I guess, because at the time Marvel had the publishing rights to RoboCop comics. At the very end, it's like Captain America, Spider-Man, and Wolverine. And then just RoboCop shows up and starts helping them.
I am Googling this right now.
It's incredible, but whenever I see that, I always think of things like that don't exist anymore. And anytime they try to bring one back, it fails. But for whatever reason, the Waterworld one just works. I don't know if it's because it's such a like high production values.
It's like a legitimately good show. It's, you know, it's stunts, it's explosions, it's like people riding jet skis. It is a really neat thing to watch. It's probably more just like a profit loss thing where, you know, they have like it's a big show. It takes up a lot of space and they can fit a lot of people in there, but you know, you're stuck in one place for 45 minutes. And so you're not going to the next attraction and you're not buying the overpriced churro or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I know that like back on Marvel, I think for a year, Marvel tried doing like a live action stage event. And it went under pretty quick, but it had like pyrotechnics and it had like they would lower like a jet from the stadium ceiling. Like it was this big event and I don't think it recouped its money. And then it also reminds me of, do you remember when they tried to make a Spider-Man Broadway play?
Turn Off the Dark, of course.
Turn Off the Dark with and they spent a fortune on it. Like the soundtrack was done by U2 and just I guess people went to it and they're just like, what am I like? I can't get into this. What am I watch
Right.
it.
It never got out of previews. Like they never figured out how to make it work. They lost a ton of money. A beautiful story.
Yeah, well, I know it struggled a lot with that, and if I'm remembering correctly, I believe one of the performers like broke their back. Like one of the
Yes.
Spider-Man stunt doubles got really hurt, and they're like, "This is a bad idea."
You know why? It's because it was a bad idea. Yeah.
With the stunt show, my girlfriend and I were actually planning on going like to go see it last year. And I was sitting on the couch watching the YouTube like recording of someone doing it. And I go to her, it's like, Danny, can you get like a glass of water and just splash it with me once in a while? I want to feel like I'm there.
It's a really exciting thing. It's it's cheesy and it's schmaltzy and but it's people jumping off of high things and riding around jet skis and fake gunfire and swinging on ropes like pirates. It's a super good time. I hope it lasts forever.
Well, I know Adam had explained it to me, and I'm like, "There's no way this can be. This just sounds like pretty lame."
Mm-hmm.
And he showed me the video of when the pontoon plane like crash lands in front of the people, and I was sold. I'm like, "That's the greatest thing I've ever seen."
Absolutely.
With Waterworld, I guess what's everybody's first like exposure to it? Because I know for myself, it was my family rented WrestleMania as one does back in the 90s. After WrestleMania is done, you get to keep the box for the month to to watch pay-per-views and order stuff. And Waterworld was on one of the movie networks, and that's where I was first exposed to it, and I fell in love with it as a kid, and I had no toys. I bought the VHS tape, I think later down the road from the rental store down the street. Mm-hmm. And then obviously I've upgraded over the years. I have the DVD, I have the Blu-ray, I have the Ultra HD Blu-ray, I have the 3-disc Arrow box set with all 3 cuts. I have the Trimaran toy with the Kevin Costner toy, the board game, the making of, the novelization, everything that I can find.
Yeah.
I remember, I think my dad winning a contest. Like it might have been something at we rented a movie at Blockbuster and we won like 10 movies or something. But I remember having a VCR and then having a bunch of VHS copies like of various movies and not liking a single one and not knowing how we got them. And I'm pretty sure Waterworld was one of them. Like what year did the movie come out?
95.
It probably would have been something he got in 96 or maybe 97. And it would have been, who published? Was it Warner Brothers or Universal? Universal. So it probably would have been a contest where it was like win 10 Universal home videos. And it was just 10 movies that they had out on home video that year or that month or whatever. And I remember having it, watching it, and it just being under our TV for like 10 years.
Yeah, no, and for me, I saw it in the theater. I'm a huge sucker for sci-fi, and I'm a teenager at this point. Because I'm an old man currently, and so I saw this in the theater. Loved every minute of it. I know it did not get the best critical reaction, and so I wasn't as confident in my love about it at first. People would ask about Waterworld, and you just go, "Oh yeah, Waterworld." People say it sucks, but it's so great. It's just so great. Just because I'm a sucker for sci-fi, specifically like that kind of post-apocalyptic shtick sci-fi, where it's like, it's the post-apocalypse, but this one, the world is water. Or it's like, I don't know if you guys have read that like Hugh Howey book, Sand, where it's like, it's the post-apocalypse, but everything is the desert. Oh, it's great. Or that other Hugh Howey book, not Silo, Wool, where it's like, it's the post-apocalypse, but everyone's in a tube. All right.
Oh my God.
Whenever I tell people about Waterworld, they're like, oh, it's like Mad Max, but on water. And I've never seen any of the Mad Max movies. So I'm just like, I guess.
Blasphemy.
I'm the worst movie watcher ever.
Yeah, Jack, watching or talking about any movie with Adam is incredible because he almost purposely goes out of his way to not watch anything that's been critically reviewed well.
Sure. No, that's fair. I think like if you're going to compare Waterworld to Mad Max, it's probably most related to like, maybe Beyond Thunderdome. Even actually probably Fury Road has more in line with Waterworld, where it's just a little bit bigger. The earlier Mad Max movies, Mad Max and Road Warrior are a little smaller scale, whereas Waterworld is a grand sci-fi adventure. They go to different areas, they have a whole mythos. It's beautiful.
I think one of the interesting things about Waterworld is when you're filming a movie, like obviously you have to pick out your location. One of the hardest areas to ever shoot on is water. Like if you read like any production notes on almost any movie, like that takes place almost primarily on the water. Like Jaws or Titanic, like 2 weeks into production, they're just like, why did we do this?
Everything's wet, and I don't like it.
Works. Yeah, nothing works. Everything's wet. Yeah, everything breaks. It's and I'm trying to remember. I think it was you had told me this, Adam, and I remember it was also in that movie, the Leonardo DiCaprio movie, The Beach. Like a tropical storm just destroyed the entire set.
Oh no!
Yeah, I have no idea what that movie is.
I didn't know.
It wasn't me.
No, I didn't know if it was Waterworld as well, but I know in that movie, The Island, like there was some sort of, I don't know, tropical depression or whatever you would call it.
Is that the Jessica Alba movie?
No, I don't even remember.
That's The Beach.
That's The Beach.
That's The Beach, not to be confused with The Island, not to be confused with The Island of Dr. Moreau.
Oh, there's so many.
There's so many movies that made the mistake of shooting on water. But you had spoken earlier about like not having the confidence to be a fan openly about this, which I think is very interesting, because the series artist Kevin Kobasic also does not seem to be openly a fan of Waterworld, which was kind of the gem for me throughout this is a 4-issue series through Valiant.
Yeah, well, this is through Valiant's like little brother that it publishes all of its licensed material, Acclaim.
Yes, yeah. Acclaim, that's right.
Which is, I believe, owned by the old Acclaim video game company.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're the same company. As far as I'm aware. Don't quote me.
So throughout the 4 issues, we kind of have letters to the editor, but we also have it's like Kevin Kobasic's notes, which to me, that was the greatest part, was just him basically struggling with the art in this book, and then just being like, you know what, to hell with Waterworld, to hell with Kevin Costner. I hate drawing. I hate drawing all that.
Well, I do know, like, I did a little bit of research into this, and there were significant rights issues with the Mariner character in these comic books, where Kevin Costner was basically had his lawyers on standby. So if the Mariner in the comic books looked too much like Kevin Costner, he would have brought down the Fury. And so making the and you can tell, like, all the cover for, like, okay, let's get into the comics here. Yep. The art is bad. It is ugly. It is that, like, everything wrong with 90s comic art. It is everything. It has way too much shading, too many lines. It is dirty and ugly. And somehow, even though, like, he's the Mariner, he's a man of the sea, in every single issue, he finds a machine gun or some sort of large, big gun, because that was the big deal in the 90s.
How big can we make this harpoon?
Yes. Can we make the harpoon look like a gun, please? And pouches everywhere. It's ugly art in general.
Yeah, the art is, I think it is very much a product of its time, which is Acclaim's artists. In this case, it's Kevin Kobasic doing pencils and Barbara Kahlberg inking over them. It's very much them being like, okay, Image Comics is the hot thing right now. How do we kind of like ape that style?
Yeah, how do we spawnify Waterworld?
Yeah, which you can't really blame them. Like it doesn't look, like you said, it doesn't look great. And there's a few, I picked up a bunch of kind of perspective issues throughout it where like the submariners or the mariner is like lunging forward at
Not the
somebody.
submariner, that's someone else's.
That's someone else. That's someone else who lives under the water. He'll be lunging forward, and then just to show the perspective, he just draws one of his legs. It's like a little tiny leg. I picked up on that a lot. The other art aspect that I absolutely loved about this were the painted covers.
Oh yeah.
Where the first issue has one of the most phallic background things I've ever seen, where the mariner is riding a whale, but the whale is shaped like a torpedo. And then as if somebody gave the cover artist notes being like, that's a little too phallic, he goes, I know what'll make it unphallic. I'll put a nice curve in it.
It's like a gentle curve just at the tip, and he added like a little mushroom top to it. It
has all the perfect bends.
Yes, while the mariner is in the foreground also holding a phallic gun. Yes. It's just dicks everywhere.
And then issue 4's cover.
Oh, 4 is great.
Issue 4, the cover of it, he's like swimming towards the reader.
Oh wait, that's number 3.
That's number 3.
Issue 3, you can literally see like the eraser marks around his face where it's like, whoop, didn't get that lined up because it's still not lined up.
Oh yeah, no, and like the weird way that his muscles work in issue number 3. I everyone needs to like Google image search issue 3 of Waterworld. It's one of those things. It's one of those like master classes in like a professional artist did this. Guess what? Anybody can be a professional artist because they make mistakes too. It's so ugly.
Well, he's swimming and his tricep is like his thigh. Like his tricep is the largest muscle on his body.
And his tricep is like jutting out as if it's a bicep. It's like his arm is like backwards. And then like what's your like that side muscle called, like where your armpit attaches to your rib cage? Whatever that muscle is seems to have broken free of his body.
Sorry, I think that's called your lat, but yeah,
okay.
It's like it's non-existent.
Cover 3 is the most Kevin Costner-y face you get, where you look at it and I'm like, that looks like Kevin Costner. Like they're gonna come after him, but I guess they probably looked at it and it's like, no, you can't tell who that is because it is bad.
I can only imagine that Jack, if you want to know Adam's movie knowledge, Adam will not get this joke. I imagine that Kevin Costner called a claim and said, if this guy looks anything like me, you'll be dancing with my lawyers.
Hey-o!
I get it. He used to dance with wolves.
Oh, Adam got it. Okay.
Yeah. One of my favorite things from the first issue is that we actually get more lore to the world of Waterworld, where it shows the ice death from above. So there's ice comets coming down, destroying the world, adding to the water of Waterworld before the polar ice caps melted.
Oh, neat.
Because I know everything I've ever read, every like scientist says, no, if the polar ice caps melted, the entire world would not be flooded. But then this comic goes, hold my beer, ice balls rain down from the heavens and fill Earth with more water.
Boom. Suck it, scientists.
That's something that I kind of remember. It's been a while since I've seen the movie. And that's something I do remember is the scene where everyone believes there's land. And then he shows the actress's name who plays like the love interest. He takes her underwater and just shows her that like he's literally just bringing up mud and that there is no soil. Like it's just trick.
Yeah.
I really love that shot of like him going down and it's like all the submerged cities. So I was excited to see that this book wasn't just Mad Max on the ocean. It was like, let's actually go explore some of the fun elements that the movie kind of brushed aside.
That being said, I'll agree with you. I think actually the story of Waterworld Children of the Leviathan is a very good story. It's a really fun kind of offshoot of the Waterworld mythos. That being said, it is 100% Mad Max on water. Like even to the point that, you know, like their giant, overweight, godlike or, you know, self-aggrandizing villain has his own themed minions, that is 100% Mad Max. He's Immortan Joe.
Well, it's funny that you bring up Immortan Joe, because Immortan Joe uses aerosol cans to like get his followers high to believe they're going to like the afterlife.
Yes.
In this book, Leviathan uses jellyfish and pufferfish to get his followers high to believe they're going to the afterlife.
So yes, it's like, which is great. Like, I love the enemy, like the Leviathan as like this gargantuan, like overweight symbol of opulence and greed is beautiful. Like a really awesome villain, you know, very what am I thinking of? Like Mojo Jojo from
oh man, yes,
from Marvel Comics, or not Mojo Jojo.
Mojo.
Just Mojo.
Yeah.
Mojo Jojo is from Powerpuff Girls, but just Mojo from Marvel Comics. And so like it's a great villain, and like they have a great shtick where yes, they are a religious cult. I love the fact that they introduce survivors that have been living underneath the water. That is so neat.
I think it's a really cool concept, kind of showing and they try to get into a little bit of like a class struggle system with it. But I think it's really neat to show that, yeah, there's people on the surface that that are just sailing around looking for land. And then you've got people underwater who believe there is no surface anymore. And then you have the mariner, who's just a man with no home swimming around, the eternal outsider.
My question about Leviathan is, when he was born, did his parents wrap barbed wire around him so he could grow like around the barbed wire like a tree would grow around a fence? Because he's laying in his bathtub and he has barbed wire like throughout his body, like weaving in and out of his skin.
Was that barbed wire, or was that supposed?
It looks like barbed wire to me.
Because it took me a few illustrations to pick up that he had jellyfish on his body.
Yeah.
And then also, I didn't know if there was something else on him where I didn't know what it was. And I think it was supposed to show that he was wet, that he was getting out of like, he was getting out of the jellyfish bathtub, and he's like, now I'm wet.
I'm with Adam. I believe it showed that he just had kind of barbed wire intermingled with his skin. It was kind of revealed in the 4th issue, I want to say, that when he was fighting with Mariner, that the Mariner made an offhanded comment about how they bleed the same color blood.
Yes.
And so I think it is insinuated that they are both kind of genetic mutations.
Which I like, because the Mariner is, I guess, part fish is his kind of gimmick with the webbed toes and the gill.
Yeah.
Leviathan is some sort of crab man.
Right, or puffer fish, or he's something.
He's got something going on, but like, yeah, in issue 4, he's in full out war mode with the people from the underground city, or the underwater city, sorry, that's one of my favorite panels, is when they come back up to the surface to finish their fight. He's yelling at his followers to push him out of the hatch of a submarine.
Oh my God, yeah.
Which is so good.
Yes.
We have to note, when he first goes to get inside the submarine, he can't squeeze through, and he uses the blood of one of his followers as lubricant just to slide in it, where I'm like, oh no.
And that's the thing, like there's a ton of really fun and interesting writing within these comics. Like I said, the art, we've just discussed like how we're all looking at the same image and interpreting it in different ways, which gives you an idea of how bad the art is. But like, there are some really interesting ideas that unfortunately didn't get a ton of room to breathe.
Yeah.
And I guess, like, for me, coming from the movie, I guess I had just assumed, which I'm sure was the case for the movie, that the Mariner's character, it was just a product of natural evolution for however long that they've been above the water, right? They've been above the water has been there long enough that everybody has forgotten about the dry world. So generations and generations and generations. Obviously, we're putting a little movie magic on that. So I guess I had always come to the conclusion that, like, Kevin Costner was just a natural, like, humans would do better if they had gills and could swim. So he's just, he's a mutant, but he is a natural evolution. Whereas the comic books seem to plant seeds that human fish mutants were genetically modified humans, and that the Mariner is the byproduct of experimentations.
Which I don't like that at all. I want the evolution of humans. I don't want he was a test tube baby.
Right.
Like that's a big turnoff.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you.
I don't know. I could go either
be,
way.
Be with us. Be with us.
I want I want the Mariner to be some sort of love child between, like Aquaman. I want his father to be a lighthouse keeper, and I want his mother to be a mermaid.
Is Waterworld the secret sequel to The Shape of Water?
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Think about it.
Very good.
Think about it.
Another thing that I kind of had in the back of my mind while reading through this, and I think I was too young to pick up on this, it actually reminded me of, I think it was a joke someone had made on Twitter. Do you think that one of the reasons why Waterworld as a movie failed is that Kevin Costner cannot be a sci-fi actor?
Ooh.
And kind of what made me think about it was, Jack, I know Adam hasn't seen it. Jack, are you familiar with the movie Terms of Endearment?
Yes.
You know how Jack Nicholson's character is an astronaut?
Yes.
Or he's in the Air Force.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's just referenced. Like they're in no part. I think he's in the Air Force training to be an astronaut or something.
Okay.
But there's no like element of showing him doing anything. He's just a character, and that's what happens to be his profession.
Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine the madness? Like there's just some actors you cannot see. Like, could you imagine, what was that movie? Gravity.
Okay. With Sandra Bullock and George Clooney.
Could you imagine, instead of George Clooney, like it was Al Pacino in space? Like that's kind of how I picture now looking back at it. I'm like, maybe I don't see Kevin Costner as being one of the guys who sticks around for the apocalypse.
I think like that's part of it, is just bad casting, which of course there's no getting around, because Kevin Costner was also a producer on this, which means it was his money going into it. So he's damn well going to star in it.
Mm-hmm. I have a little bit of a backup to my theory, though.
Okay.
What was the other Kevin Costner science fiction movie? And
it was The Postman, and it was amazing.
And how did that fare at the box office?
Right. Now, see, The Postman is super amazing. And over at Red Letter Media, we have watched that for many a bad movie night, just trying to dissect The Postman, and we have never been able to. But it is a glorious feat of movie making. Now, but his character makes a lot of sense in The Postman, because, you know, for anyone who hasn't seen The Postman, one, block off 4 hours and bring some coffee, because gee bus. In The Postman, he starts out, he's a grifter, you know, he like just finds this outfit and kind of pretends to be the postman, which makes a lot of sense. That's good casting for Kevin Costner. Waterworld, it's not necessarily the post-apocalyptic side of Waterworld that doesn't fit with Kevin Costner. It's the action side of it.
Okay, I see that.
He is swinging from ropes. He's fighting. He's diving. He is doing a lot of action stuff. And Kevin Costner, God bless him, is not an action star.
Yeah, like I can't, in my mind, like picturing it, I could see how this movie could have worked maybe with some other actors that had a bit more, instead of like not that I think Kevin Costner is a wuss by any means, but like Kevin Costner, like what was the mafia movie, The Untouchables, he was in?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
He plays a good cop. Like he kind of, to me, he plays like a bit of a thinking man tough guy. Like I could see him playing a detective, a police officer, something like that, and still getting like physical and handsy with the ne'er-do-wells. But I don't see him as like, you know, a biker or a guy like a Vietnam War vet coming back home. Like I don't picture him as kind of like the, you know, the really on edge loner character.
I think if this movie was made 10 years later in 2005 and you recast Hugh Jackman in the role of the Mariner, you would have had an even better movie, because I feel like on the set of X-Men, Bryan Singer could have said to him, like, no, be like the Mariner from Waterworld, because he's a fucking dick in this movie, just like Wolverine is a dick in that first movie. They're the same character, just one's not as fun as the other.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I think that's great casting. And I'm trying to think of now, like for the time, I just did a quick Google search of like 90s action stars, so I could see like who could they have cast in at the time to make the Mariner work. And there's only one person out of this list that really, really works, and they never would have cast that person.
Is it Van Damme? I feel like Van Damme would be a good choice.
It's not Van Damme, but like Van Damme has the look, right? Because like that's the look you want for the Mariner. Unfortunately, Van Damme is terrible. He's just a terrible actor.
Could you imagine the shipping cost alone just to get Van Damme's cocaine out to set?
Somewhat like the plastic bins to make sure it doesn't get wet. So, you know, like you have your like your Kurt Russell, you have your I'm forgetting who
is it. Russell Crowe?
No, I'm thinking of Bruce Willis. You have your Bruce Willis, who's your 90s action star, who might, like, those two are good names and they might be able to pull off a Mariner. Both have done sci-fi action before and a pretty good job of it. But hear me out here, okay? Here's dream casting for the Mariner if I am in charge of it. Sigourney Weaver.
Oh,
yeah, it would have worked.
She has like the gravitas to like be that loner character, but also the action chops where you absolutely believe it if she is riding around, jumping around and punching dudes.
And you could get that awkward scene of her pumping out like baby fishmen out of herself.
What, is that like an Aliens reference?
No, because she's a lady, so she could have babies and she could have.
Oh, okay,
so she'd be laying eggs and ask someone to, you know, fertilize them. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that would be super gross. And no, that's not making it in the movie. That's super gross.
Just get it. Stepping away from the eggs.
Thank you.
Sigourney Weaver, I think, I think some people kind of have that kind of toughness look to them.
Yeah.
And I think like she kind of does have a bit of an imposing lone wolf quality that I think, kind of makes it a bit more like I could see her in a role like this over Kevin Costner. There's other actors too that probably could have done it, but I don't see Kevin Costner as like.
No, Kevin Costner is like the ordinary schmo who's maybe a bit in over his head. Like I said, I think he works in The Postman, but you know, this is a guy who's like, you know, he's the old baseball guy in Bull Durham. He's the laid back Midwesterner who's doing his own thing. Like he kind of makes sense in Dances with Wolves, just because of the time period and he's a schmo. But no, you cannot make him an action star. And that was the biggest mistake.
I think whatever actor you cast has to have the look of someone who's willing to drink their own urine.
Yeah.
And Kevin Costner, I'm just saying it right now. Take it as may he be too stubborn or not. I see Kevin Costner dying of thirst before he will actually bow down and drink his own urine.
Kevin Costner is too good to drink his own urine, and I don't think that's slander at all. Speaking of, by the way, no urine drinking in the comic book. Putting that out there.
Yeah.
Disappointing.
The only thing that they did drink in the comic was blood.
Yeah,
Leviathan's like, have the blood, my children.
Yeah, interesting.
So we need to talk about the Mariner has like weapon stashes, dozens of them, where he keeps waterlogged M16s.
Yeah, they work after being underwater for 200 years. I think it would have been better if like what you were saying, this movie takes place generations in the future, so there's no real knowledge of how things work that have been like lost to the flood or whatever it is. I thought it would have been better if Kevin Costner goes, I have a cache of like super weapons under the water, I'll go down and get them. And then you have a scene of him walking past all these crates that are like bazookas, Uzis, hand grenades. And then he's just like, and then he just picks up harpoons because he doesn't know what those are. Like, there's no frame of reference to be like, that's a machine gun, it's going to be super effective. He's like, no, I have a trident. It's so phallic, and I have like 5 of them. I'm gonna go get them. Wait here, guys. I'm gonna go get them.
and yeah, so in the comic books, because it's a 90s comic books, everyone has machine guns because machine guns were the big thing, right? And I'm trying to remember now, in the movie, the smokers did have guns, right? They had guns.
Yeah, the Mariner steals one at one point, actually does shoot people.
Right.
But aren't they like kind of like, I remember the scene where the guy uses like the inverted turret gun from like an old bomber plane.
Yeah.
And he accidentally like shoots everyone. I remember that, but I kind of remember, aren't the little handheld guns that the smoker, aren't they almost look like blunderbusses? Like they look like they've been repurposed out of a bunch of stuff.
That's true.
And
but
I liked that.
I guess what I'm getting at here is like what I was wondering aloud is there a frame of reference for guns in the Waterworld universe? And he has gone up against enemies who have used guns, so he would be aware of them. The fact that his gun stash was underwater, it was metal in salt water for 200 years. That's the part where you go, come on, comic books, give us something clever, like maybe he does something fishy or mariner-y to save the day. No, just guns. I'm gonna go get guns.
I thought it would have been really neat. I wanted to see a scene where depth charges were used.
Ooh, yeah.
And I wanted a scene where Leviathan, his ship that he uses is like a repurposed aircraft carrier.
Yes, which is incredibly badass.
All the spikes coming off, it's amazing.
Yes. It's my second favorite aircraft carrier in comics. The first one being in Godzilla Half Century War, the aircraft carrier that Gigan uses to surf to the North Pole. That's amazing.
I'll take your word for it. Absolutely.
I wanted a scene where what's the boat called? The Trimaran?
Yeah.
I wanted a scene where it gets captured and then it like the next panel shows that he's got like a torpedo underneath it. And that's like his secret weapon.
Ooh.
Like I kind of wanted something that had a bit more nautical tomfoolery with like depth charges and torpedoes. Like there's harpoons, but they're a little out. Like if Waterworld takes place in a future where the future world has been flooded with water, how many tridents are lying around?
Well, we have to assume that, like all culture is now fishing culture, right? And so like a trident is a fishing tool. Like you use that to spearfish, basically.
Okay, I get that, yeah.
And so yeah, no, I think there's a ton of tridents around because everyone uses them as fishing utensils. I think though your call for nautical themed action is like at the core of one of the problems with this comic book, which is they're underwater, sure, but they didn't have the imagination to think of like, okay, we're underwater. We know we want guns because guns is what sells. Let's try to think of an underwater gun, maybe, right?
Yeah.
With all the bad guys using like pufferfish.
Yes.
And then ninja starfish.
And we got to pause on that one for a second.
Yeah.
Because you said something really important. Ninja starfish were used in the comic book, and it really hurt the Mariner, and they took it very seriously, even though it's very silly.
Yes, it's right in his arm. I'm like, no, they didn't. It's like, why doesn't he have more aquatic weapons on it?
Right?
Oh my God.
I am happy that he upgraded his boat and he has the balloon on it, which made me laugh really hard because there's an editor's note where they mention like, oh, he upgraded his boat, little star, and it says, see Waterworld the movie. Yeah. And I'm like, holy shit.
like someone read the comic before the movie.
And they're like, stop. I need to put this down. There's a fucking movie. Yeah.
It's just some kid. It's like some Mormon kid who's not allowed to go to the movies.
Yes.
It's like, this is amazing.
They made a talkie out of this? Oh, I gotta sneak out one of these days and go see a talkie at a Waterworld.
So the final battle when
hang on one sec.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, just before we get to the final battle, my favorite, I actually thought it was a really good sequence, was when he jumps down the elevator shaft then cuts the cable, and then when the two guards stick their head down, the elevator cuts their heads off as it passes. And then when he lands on the ground, immediately after he lands, two heads land. I'm like, that's a well-planned page. Like that was a good action beat. I like that.
Yeah.
There were a few instances where I'm like, wow, this is not kid-friendly. And I'm happy about that. Like the decapitations and then people just being stabbed like over and over again.
Or Leviathan's constant calls to bring him his women back.
Yeah, we could have gone like 3 seconds without rape. Like that would have been great. And there is none in the comics, but it is like implied and at one point implicitly called upon when they kidnap the doctor lady.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, come on, we get it. He's the bad guy. We don't need.
When I got to that part, I was just like, no, why?
Yeah.
Why? We don't need this. This is a kid's comic. It's like, bring my woman. I'm going to give her an heir.
What this comic needed in issue 3 needed to close underwater, about to flood the underwater city, and the mariner harpoons Leviathan's crab arm to like the wall as the city's about to flood, thinking, I've got him. Like I pinned him in a sinking city and it's toast. And then Leviathan needed to rip off his own arm and then crab walk away to safety, going, not this time.
Right. Or like, grow a new one, like starfish powers, or even like just be stuck underwater and be like, see, I can breathe underwater too. What a twist.
It needed, when Leviathan dies, Mariner needed to say, you're in hot water now.
Oh,
I'm gone. I'm done. This is malarkey.
I love Leviathan's crustacean armor. Is that the right right word? Yeah, where he's naked, but then he just has like crab armor covering him, and he has the big crab arm, and I'm like, where did you find a crab? And all of his minions, they're all covered in crab armor as well, which I thought they were crab people. I'm like, this is fucking sweet. But no, they're just humans wearing like pieces of different animals that they've killed over time, which is absolutely fine.
I like how his right-hand man, who was named Jonah, wink, wink. I really liked how Jonah's helmet was just a giant crayfish head, which, as far as the animal kingdom goes, the crayfish has to have, it's the stupidest head on any animal. He's just got a giant crayfish helmet, and you're like, why that? Of anything, why that?
Right. I think they definitely had a missed opportunity here. They if I'm imagining this comic as a movie or a modern day Netflix series, which by the way, this would work great as a modern day Netflix series. I felt like we needed a little more setup time with the minions, because you're absolutely right that they do look like mutants, right? Like they look like a human fish hybrid. And I felt like if we would have set them up first and been like, oh no, the mutants are here, and found out that they were just humans wearing fish armor, that would have been a really neat reveal, instead of like knowing that from the beginning.
I was gonna say that is much like a movie that we watched not too long ago, The 13th Warrior.
Yeah.
Ooh, yes, of course, Antonio Banderas.
Yes.
I watch a lot of movies.
Yeah, and 13th Warrior, you're under the assumption for, I think, the first half of the movie that they're fighting like a demonic spirit.
Right.
And then you just realize like, no, it's just like a barbarian tribe that's kind of how they look. And it's like, oh, okay.
Right. No, and like, but that's neat. That could have been a really neat reveal. Like, I feel like a lot of this, there's a ton of story in here, and there's like a ton of knowledge that they've given us, but I also felt like they gave it to us at the wrong time, where like we the audience are meeting the underground dwellers as they're surfacing, and then they get attacked by the crab people, right? And really, we should have met them. Like they were alluded to earlier, that when the mariner went down to one of his secret stashes, but we should have met them earlier, gotten to know them before they rose up. It just 4 issues is not enough time for this. I felt like I feel like if we would have had like a 5th issue before issue 1, we could have had a little more time to stew with all the information dumps that we got.
I think they needed to close off the series with the reveal that they're in present time, and that they're all the boats that have been stuck in the Bermuda Triangle, and that this entire series is just taking place off the coast of Florida.
Yes.
and no one's aware it's happening.
At the end of the last issue, in the notes from Dryland, it says as to the future of the Mariners saga and Waterworld, we love a second crack at it. Universal allowed us to expand on some of the mythology. It's because Universal, I feel, didn't give a shit about their own property, where they're like, somebody wants to license Waterworld. do it. They're going to pay us free money.
Maybe we can make some of this budget back.
Jack's 100% right, where there needs to be like a Netflix series. Maybe one day when Disney buys Universal, because they're buying everything, they'll be like, hey, let's look at Waterworld. Does people like
Disney
it?
already owns Universal, right?
Do they?
As part of their Fox buyout. Didn't they get Universal as well? Or is that a different...
Oh my
I have no idea. I would assume so.
Disney owns everything. Now I got to Google this.
I think the hidden gem in this book, like Adam said, is the notes to dry land. Like reading Kevin Kobasic, just reading him talking about how he's not allowed to draw Kevin Costner. And then the very next sentence, he goes, good, I wanted to draw a character with an actual hairline. And you're just
Boom!
like, Jesus, Kevin. Like, you didn't get to draw Kevin Costner. Calm down, man. Like, you don't have to burn the guy.
Well, but I mean, that is part of it, is, you know, unfortunately, right? The movie industry is a visual industry, and we have certain standards, and that's part, like, beyond his acting style, which is very like low-key Midwestern. I say that as someone who is Midwestern and very low-key. Like, beyond his acting style, he does not look like an action lead in your sci-fi action movie.
No, he comes across as a police officer or a detective. I don't see him as the guy who makes a boat after the apocalypse and then designs a machine to process his own urine. There's a few actors I could see doing that, but
like, even at the time, his role should have been like the old mentor, you know, like the guy who's sitting on the dock fishing while the action mariner like goes to him for advice. Even at the time, and I'm sure at the time he was younger, or, you know, at the time he was, so wait, 94. Hold on. How old is Kevin Costner? This is very important.
He's got to be in his late 60s now.
He is 66 currently. And so in 94, he would have been, oh Lord, 94. That's 16 years ago. What is it, 21?
24.
24 years ago?
It's 2021 now.
Uh-huh.
So 21 years ago is 2000, and then 4 years before.
Oh my God!
So he was.
Hang on, we're doing math.
He was 42 when he made Waterworld. And by the way, so like I'm almost 40. Guess what? I'm too old to be an action star. That's how it works. Like, they're making a whole joke movie about that with Bob Odenkirk currently, where he's an old man going to be an action star, and that's the gag of the movie. Like. And so it's like, basically, I think what we're discovering here is Waterworld was Kevin Costner's midlife crisis.
That's true.
Yeah.
Where he said, I'm not getting old. Look, I'm an action star.
I think because this might have been my very first Kevin Costner movie. So for me, I look at him as like, yeah, I buy this.
Jack,
Is that true?
Jack, you have no idea what it's like being friends with Adam, talking to him about any form of current popular media. It's amazing. He lives in a bubble, and it's so fucking funny.
I don't live in a bubble.
You live in a bubble.
1995 is the best movie year of all time, in my personal opinion.
Yeah.
You have Mortal Kombat, Waterworld, Hackers, Highlander 3, I think.
Nice. Very nice. Here's what I'll say is, if you have the time, go back and watch Bull Durham. It's Kevin Costner, Tim Robbins, what's his wife's name? Susan Sarandon's, and like a beautiful little low-key baseball movie. And like, that's the kind. Oh, actually, when did that come out? So you know, like, this is just how the podcast is working now, where I'm just gonna Google stuff, and I'm not gonna apologize.
Oh yeah.
Don't, please.
I am not going to apologize. Bull Durham came out in 88, and he would like, so in Bull Durham, a movie that came out 7 years before Waterworld, Kevin Costner was playing like the old mentor. And then he decides he's cool, he's hip, I want to be the action star. Like Bull Durham. Oh, he did 2 baseball movies in a row, by the way, Bull Durham and Field of Dreams. But Bull Durham is great. That's it's one of my favorite baseball movies ever made. It's a really great movie about an old mentor and a young hothead, and that's the Kevin Costner that we need in every movie.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't blame him for taking a shot. at being an action hero. I also don't really, they don't make a ton of movies like this.
Right.
So when they do take a chance on it, even when it fails, like one of my personal favorite movies is the Stallone Judge Dredd movie.
Oh, sure. Stallone and Rob Schneider. Yeah.
Yeah. But what I love about that is you can't watch that movie under the premise that it's a Hollywood movie. You have to be aware of the comic universe that Judge Dredd exists in. And if you read some of the Judge Dredd comics or a couple of like the better Judge Dredd comic stories that explain, because Judge Dredd is just a character. Judge Dredd comics are about the city that they live in. And Judge Dredd just happens to be a character in this city. So like he's not a lot of Judge Dredd comics, he's not the primary character in it. But that movie gets that city, how ridiculous that city is so well, because it's a 70s version of what British satirical comic book artists and writers thought America would be in the future.
Right.
And that comic or that movie gets so much of that right that it's very interesting to see, even though it does get muddled and very Hollywooded towards the end. But I find like Waterworld is very similar, where it's like, this is a wild movie. Like this is a science fiction movie, and it is a bit of a chase movie with like the Road Warrior homage, as we'll call them in it.
Sure.
But like the basis of it is you have a guy like selling dirt and like giving false hope to these dirty traders that just like are these, not traitors, but like these people trying to like eke out a living on the ocean. And it's just such a weird little story that somebody, albeit, made the mistake of saying, let's put $200 million into this. It didn't need to be that big.
Just 175 million. Don't worry, it's not 200 million. That would be crazy. No, and I can be with you, and like that's the thing where like Waterworld exists, and we should be so happy that it exists. The fact that we get a 4-run comic issue expanding on the universe, and you know what? It's not the worst thing in the world. It's like an interesting take on that universe. The fact that they built a universe in Waterworld, right? Like that's so neat. They swung big, to use a baseball metaphor. The fact that it has a long running stunt show, I think like speaks to the legs that Waterworld has, even as an ironically good movie. If you want to go that far, I think it's legitimately good, but I also watch bad movies in my free time. So like, I think I'm a little skewed judgment wise.
For anyone who's never watched Waterworld, 1, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
2, you need to watch the European cut, the Ulysses cut, which is only 178 minutes, and I highly recommend it.
This is another thing I love, Jack, is because Adam has this insane physical media collection of Waterworld. Like he's bought, because Waterworld was ultimately a failure for whatever studio released it. Universal, sorry, I keep forgetting. It was ultimately considered a failure, but as Zack Snyder is showing us right now, you cannot fail in Hollywood. You just need a bit more time and a bit more money. So kind of before Justice League had a, him come back and be like, no, just let me, it's like the studio saying pencils down, and Zack Snyder's just like, oh, just let me finish the sentence. You have, and Adam can tell you about this, you have Waterworld, where the difference between its VHS release and its Laserdisc release and its home DVD release and its remastered release, it's been re-edited, and it's had content taken out to try to tidy it up. And it's had deleted scenes put back in to try to like explore the world a bit more. Like for 15 years after Waterworld came out, they were still tinkering with it, being like, we can't admit that this was a failure. There's one screw loose that's keeping this entire operation from making us all millionaires.
Right. And unfortunately, the screw loose was Kevin Costner. There's just no cutting around him. No, and I have that like special Blu-ray with all the 3 cuts on it. And I love it. And the one that came with the special, like the book. I don't know if you have that version as well.
Yep, the hard box.
Yeah. Oh, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing to have in your collection, especially if you are, a fan like we all are. And it's like it makes you a little bit sad because the only thing we get nowadays that's like big and sci-fi already has a legacy attached to it. That's the only big swings that they're making nowadays. And so yeah, we need another Waterworld. We need another original big sci-fi dookie fest and swing big. Absolutely.
Now, Jack.
Yeah.
I hope you're sitting down.
I'm ready.
What if I told you?
No.
They did it again.
Who did what again?
Someone swung for the fences with a stupid science fiction idea that is not based in a pre-existing movie, whatever you would call it. Have you heard of Mortal Engines?
I have heard of Mortal Engines.
Mortal Engines is about the city of London.
Wasn't that based on something though?
I think it was based on a young adult book series.
Yeah, so then that doesn't count.
That's an IP.
That's an adaptation. That doesn't count. Waterworld was not an adaptation.
You're right. They crammed it all into one movie, and just watching that movie just reminded me of Waterworld, because it was like, how did no one say no to this? Like someone wrote on a cocktail napkin, City of London, and then they underlined it and then drew army tank tracks.
Yep. But what if on wheels?
And then they slid that cocktail napkin to just a coked up producer. And he went, yeah.
No, the last big original sci-fi thing we got was Avatar. Was James Cameron's Avatar. And
I guess you're right.
And that's all we get besides adaptations. There's been a few original sci-fi things on the streaming services, which has been nice. I'm thinking of like Netflix's German time travel show Dark, which is a wonderful original sci-fi show, which is great. Even one my favorite sci-fi show at the time, The Expanse, is of course based off of the Leviathan Wakes series of books. So yeah, that's all we get now is adaptations.
And that's all it will ever be. No new ideas. We're not allowed.
You know, we're getting them here and there, but yeah, back in the 90s, we could have these big dumb things. And I think like what I love most about these comics, because of course that's what we're here to talk about most, is the fact that they, like, even though the art kind of sucks and the story is a little bit rushed and really they're ripping off Mad Max, I do like that they actually put thought into like, what is another thing in this world? Like, okay, we had our big smoker bad guy in the movie. What if there's an even bigger bad guy? He's a cult dude. Okay, perfect. That's great. What if there are people living underground and they don't know that people are on the surface? Like, that's neat ideas, and that's really organically builds out the world and makes you a little more invested in the world. And so like that gets me really excited. I would read more Waterworld comics if they were produced. Like, I would watch that series if it was produced. Get on it, whoever needs to get on it.
Where the Waterworld movie felt like it took its time, especially being like well over 2 hours, the comics just felt rushed. But yeah, just the story, like, it leaves you wanting more, and I'm like, I want more, and we're not allowed to have more.
Well, that's an interesting point where you talk about being rushed. Adam had me read a comic. It was the Topps comic adaptation of James Bond GoldenEye.
Oh, okay.
And it is one of the funniest, not intentionally. And it's kind of, I don't know if everyone would find it funny, but just seeing how, like, obviously when you write a comic, you have to lay it out and you have to be aware that you only have 28 pages or however many pages to tell your story. So you have to, and that's kind of what I love about comics is they have to wrap it up at the end. Like it actually has like a bit of a format. Topps' GoldenEye spends so much time having fun with like some of like the visually appealing aspects of GoldenEye. And then it completely forgets that it has 7 pages left to finish the entire movie. And then the last 5 pages is just James Bond running, being like, now I'm here. This happened off page. And you're just like, oh no.
The best thing about that comic is, as it is expediting through the story, it's a 3-issue series, and issue 2 and 3 never came out. So you have,
oh no.
Yeah.
But you have like do you remember at the beginning of GoldenEye, when I believe he's in like Monte Carlo or Monaco or something, and he's playing in the casino, and there's that scene of him driving a sports car, and he ends up kind of having a bit of a road race with the Famke Jensen character.
Oh, sure.
The art team on that book makes that entire sequence like a 3-page sequence. And they have so much fun with it, and it looks really nice. But then you realize like that was 45 seconds in the movie. Like that was 1% of the movie of its total runtime. You just allocated 15% of the comic book's entire runtime towards that sequence. Like the pacing is so far off, it's incredible.
Right.
So Jack, what we do at the tail end of the episode is we have a running top 10 list where we keep track of everything that we've watched or read. Stuff gets bumped off the list, stuff doesn't make it onto the list. I pick a comic or movie, TV show, Cody gets mad at me, does not put it on his list because I wasted his time. For myself, this is my new number 2. I absolutely love this comic, this series. This is right under Terror Assaulter and right above Hard Boiled, not to be confused with the John Woo movie. This is the Jeff Darrow comic.
For me, this is going to be my new number 9. So I'm going to put this right underneath the Auteur and right above the Wrestle Club zine.
Jack, you get to do the honors. Where do you put this on your list? For us, this is your number 1 because this is the only thing you've done. But for yourself in general as well, you get to tell us where, like, of all the comic books that you've read, how would you rank this one?
Oh, I mean, it's down there. It's of all the comic books I've read. No, it's oh crap. It'd probably be like in the 30s, I guess. Trying to think more realistically. It is interesting. It is unique, but if it wasn't tied to a movie that I love and is kind of controversial that I love it, I don't know if I would give these comics a second thought. So I'm gonna rank this actually right below the Batman versus Predator miniseries.
Oh,
so like right there.
This really seems like, this is. I could definitely see this being like, if you're a fan of something like that, you would get a kick out of this.
Yes, yeah. If you really dug the 4 or 5 issue run of Batman v Predator, then Waterworld Children of Leviathan is right up your alley.
I love the glowing endorsement.
That's it. And it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, I added onto my pun. I was thinking about it. So he kicks Leviathan into the whale fin's mouth and goes, "You're in hot water now." And then when he lands and looks at the doctor, he goes, "Butter him than me."
Butter him what?
Instead of better him than me, butter.
Oh,
I don't know.
Bad.
Yeah, maybe just it needed more puns.
All right, so you can find us at akindofgarbage.com. You can also email at us at akindofgarbage@gmail.com. We are on Twitter, Instagram, both at akindofgarbage, as well as Facebook at akindofgarbagepod. Check out patreon.com/akindofgarbage, where every other week we have a bonus movie episode where we pick something probably even worse than we've done on the free podcast and that we hated even more. Finally, you can find myself on Twitter at Presto Adam and on the Hey Kids Comics radio show Friday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Trent Radio 92.7 CFFF FM. Cody, where can people find you?
You can follow me on Twitter at asyncedword. And Jack, where can people follow you for updates?
Oh no, I'm refusing after that pun, Cody. I am no longer
affiliate.
I'm going to wait for an apology, written apology from you for that.
Butter him
than me. Like I was kind of with you with the hot water thing, but butter him than me. Just nope, I'm out.
How about this for issue 5? The remaining forces of Leviathan come to the Mariner saying, "We need your help," because obviously that's how you do a sequel, is you have the villain become the accomplice to like the protagonist. Like, "I know we don't always see eye to eye, but I need your help on this one, Mariner." And they go, "There's a death cult in the deeps that's taking out everyone," and then it's called like the Church of Red Lobster.
right, I'm gonna have to mute Cody.
I'm sorry. I have no like. I I have no horse in this race as far as what they do with this property. So they can do anything they want. They should do a move. They should do a tie-in where it's Waterworld versus Quantum Leap. Like, I don't care what happens.
First of all, I'd be there. No, you can follow me at Twitter. On Twitter at Harlack, HARLACK. You can see me talk about movies and video games over at EscapistMagazine.com. And every once in a while, you can see me talk about bad movies over at RedLetterMedia.com.
With that, I'm Anna Bishop.
I'm Cody Andrews.
I'm Jack Packard.
And be forever buoyant.
Jesus Christ.
Is that my pun? I get a pun
Mediocre.
You're mediocre? Fuck.
Yeah, so we're still in the middle of a pandemic.
What?
As always.
As always, never ending. I'm recording this from my bomb shelter in the backyard.
Mm-hmm.
So we're up in Southern Ontario in Canada, and we've been hearing our provincial government kind of outline some guidelines for what's going to be happening in the next couple of weeks as far as opening like stores back up and everything. Which has been pretty exciting because pretty much for this entire pandemic, me and Adam usually go, we have a couple of comic book stores that we like in Toronto that are just, one of them is literally a warehouse just full of 90s trash.
Yes.
And we love going up there. We love talking to the guys up there. We love finding comics to talk about on the podcast. So we're pretty excited to see maybe soon we'll actually be able to get out there and talk to some of our friends and go shopping for trash comics again. Adam, you?
I know a few episodes ago I was talking about how my girlfriend and I were watching the Joe Schmo show.
Yeah.
And we finished the Joe Schmo show too. Jack, do you know what the Joe Schmo show is?
I don't.
So the Joe Schmo show was on Spike TV almost 20 years ago now.
Okay.
And it was where they set up like a bachelor, or I guess the first one was like a Big Brother almost, but everyone was an actor except for one person. And then the second season was a bachelor, but so they had a guy and a girl, and they had two real people, and everyone else on the show were actors as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we watched. And basically they're just messing with this person. And then that person, they don't have a meltdown at the end, but they're like, what's happening? Who's real? Nothing's real. And they just they lose their mind.
Sure.
Because the whole way they're thinking like, this is very odd, but this is a TV show. So this is what it's like. When in reality, like, no, they're making you not trust anybody for the rest of your life. And it's hilarious to watch. Mm-hmm. How about yourself?
Pandemic wise, Wisconsin, actually, the state where I am from, we are moving up the list of like percentage of population vaccinated, which is very, very exciting. We like everyone here in the States, we had a really shaky rollout of the vaccines, and we're doing a really good job, and numbers are going down. Cases, deaths are trending down, which is really, really exciting. I know, like for me, right when the you might notice here on my Zoom call that it says CSZ Milwaukee, which stands for ComedySportz Milwaukee, because I do improv comedy here in Milwaukee. And so, like, right before the pandemic hit, I had become a professional improviser. I'd gone through all the training, all the classes, and they had called me up to the big leagues. And in Milwaukee, ComedySportz as an improv theater is a bit of a big deal. And so I was putting in all of my time, like working, like before you get stage time, they make you like seat people and clean up like drinks, and like they ask you to put in all the work. And so I was just starting to get stage time and like music voice time. And right when that happened, the pandemic hit.
Oh, that sucks.
And as someone who is a big, big fan of live theater in general, specifically like live comedy, that sort of thing, going to live theater had become like a weekly thing. I'd go watch other shows. I'd go participate in all of these things. And that is going to be one of the last things that gets reopened. And, you know, so far we've done a pretty good job of weathering it. We've been doing Zoom shows and Zoom practices, but that's the thing that I am looking forward to the most, is just like being around other funny people and like riffing in real life, not waiting for that Zoom microsecond of delay.
I know in town that we had a Yuck Yucks comedy bar, but I was too young and I think it's closed now. So I've never experienced live stand-up in person.
Now, as someone who's doing performing, Jack, what kind of vibes are you getting as far as when things do start to open up? Do you think people are kind of I don't want to say desperate, but do you think people are so content starved that it's going to be a big rush out to theaters and stuff again? Or do you think it's going to be like kind of a slow, cautious, tepid reopening?
Well, from what I've been hearing from people who are significantly smarter than me, which is most people, and I'm okay with that, is that it is going to be a slow return. You know, not only are people cautious, as they should be, but also people are comfortable. That's a weird thing that we found during this pandemic, is people are really comfortable at home. And a ton of people who went to work from home during the pandemic are going to choose to stay working from home because they enjoy it so much, and they can.
Yeah. Something that personally I kind of thought this was going to be like a huge shakeup for live entertainment and for movie theaters and concerts and comedy and theater. But I had just read this week that I think it's Carnival, whoever one of the bigger cruise lines is, they're saying they've made some deal now where I think they're going to screen for COVID before getting on the ship. And then they'll screen for COVID after. And it's some promotion, and it's called, I love the name of the promotion, it's called Return to Cruising. Like, it's so fun sounding, but it's literally just like, come out from the bomb shelters, please.
Well, no, and I think like that's a thing that we're all going to have to deal with, is like a version, some sort of version of PTSD, where we've all been trapped inside for a year, or at least hopefully we have been, and everyone's taking this seriously. And yeah, getting people back out is going to be tricky, convincing them that it's safe and just convincing them to leave the couch, because their couch is very comfortable.
I know back in August last year, stuff kind of like relaxed around us up in Canada. And I go to Cody. It's like, Cody, we're going to go see New Mutants in theaters.
Oh my God, we did. We saw, I don't know how it was in where you are, Jack. We went and saw the movie right when they tried. So they had initially shut down movie theaters in Canada, and then they tried doing like a safe reopening. And the way it was, you had this huge buffer area all around you.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So we went and saw, it wasn't a very big theater that we saw it in, but we went and saw New Mutants. And I think it was us and 4 other people. And they just had they had like, you could only sit, there was only 2 seats together. And then there was like a 4-seat buffer in either direction that was taped off. So there was literally like 8 or 10 people in the entire theater. And it was just so fun. It's just like, this isn't going to work, guys. Like, you need to think of another way to do this. Or I don't know, like, there's no way you can make money.
My mentality was, I waited 3 fucking years for this movie. I want to see it in theaters.
No, like, and I'm super excited to get back to movie theaters. I know a lot of people don't care about movie theaters. I love the theater going experience. I love being immersed with the giant screen and the popcorn. And even if people are talking, I don't care. I love it. I like that kind of communal response reaction, which is, you know, again, why I really like live comedy theater. Like, I want to hear the crowd gasp, and I want to hear the crowd laugh. And so, no, I'm super excited about that. I'm super excited. Like, I have kids. I want them to get out of the house and go to school. Like, leave me alone for a couple hours every day. That would be great. Like, you know, before and after, like, I work from home. I've always worked from home, making these internet videos. And so it's like, my life hasn't changed much, except for now there's everyone else around too. And I don't like it. I don't like, my family, they're around me all the time.
Yeah, where I work was declared an essential service. So
Oh, okay.
I had to keep going to work.
Uh-huh.
And then my girlfriend's work was declared non-essential, but her business stayed open for remote work.
Oh, okay.
So we completely gutted a bedroom in our house and turned it into a home office for her.
Mm-hmm.
And it was exciting. Like when we first did it, we're like, this is something new and this could be good. And then like 1 year later, it's just so funny because it's like just her working in her pajamas.
Mm-hmm.
And then being like, oh, you're so lucky you get to go to work. And I'm just like, oh, you're so lucky you get to stay home. Like
Right?
just both of us being on opposite sides of the coin. Her being like, man, it must be so nice to wear clothes and go out and talk to people. And I'm like, when I'm at work, I'm not allowed to be within 20 feet of anyone else. And I can't wear pajamas. I'm like, you have it made.
It's like, I do feel like that is missing in general, is that like that water cooler talk is just like hanging out with new people and hearing about their day. Even if they suck, like I just want to like talk to another person and like, what's going on with your life?
Yeah.
So we do all we can. Like I have a regular Dungeons and Dragon night with some people, and we do that via Zoom now. And like we tried to do like board game nights digitally via Zoom with some friends, and that doesn't super work. And Zoom is great. Zoom has like I keep thinking like I'm so glad that this happened in an age of technology, because we still get to have so much interaction, right? Like the pandemics of the past, people were literally locked in, and now we still get to talk to everybody. So that's nice.
What I think is funny though is I remember early on reading about all these scientific breakthroughs that happened during like Spanish flu and everything, just from scientists or just from like universities not being open, and then having like scientists basically confined to their own labs and just like left alone.
Yeah.
And I love that. Kind of the opposite to what you're saying is, instead of that, we just have everyone stuck at home on the internet. So then when a meme happens, it's just a global shared experience.
Right.
So like, I think right now, the one everyone's talking about is the girl who put Gorilla Glue in her hair.
Yep. Yeah.
And like the saga of everyone being like, and now for an update on that girl who put Gorilla Glue, because like it's kind of like the common denominator amongst all of us right now. It's just stupid memes online.
Well, no, and it's the really interesting thing about that, but like thinking on like stupid memes and how we're all like on the internet all the time, is how fast now fandom is moving. Like there were things that happened at the end of the of last year, fandom wise, movie wise, right? Like I'm thinking of like the ending of the ending of season 2 of The Mandalorian. I'm thinking about Wonder Woman 84. If those two things happened any other year, we would still be talking about them and dissecting them. But the internet has moved on. Like we are on the internet so much. We have gotten our fill of that already. And we're on to girl who glued her hair. Like,